The crystalline spires of Luminae Prime, once radiant beacons against the velvet backdrop of the void, were dimming. Energy shields, a marvel of Luminae ingenuity for millennia, flickered ominously, unable to withstand the relentless acidic onslaught of the Xylos swarm. Below, the once bustling luminous capital was a ghost of its former self, its intricate light-web circuits disrupted, the faint screams of its populace carried on the thin, synthetic atmosphere. Elder Sira, her multifaceted eyes dull with exhaustion, traced a finger across the holographic projection of their dying world. Around the polished obsidian table, the other members of the Luminae High Council sat, their luminescent forms flickering in agitation. Each shift in their internal light indicated a rising level of despair. "We have exhausted every avenue," pleaded Councillor Trevlar, his bioluminescent skin pulsing erratically. "Our quantum phase inhibitors are failing. The swarm adapts faster than we can innovate." "The ancient protocols dictate isolation," Councillor Vexor countered, his voice a low hum of deep-seated tradition. "To seek external assistance, particularly from new species, is an abomination." Syra turned, her normally placid gaze hardening. "Abomination, Councillor. Is the annihilation of our entire civilization preferable to a breach of protocol? The Xylos are a plague, a bioengineered horror that consumes all in its path. We have observed their expansion, seen worlds wither. Our own methods, however advanced, are insufficient." She reactivated a data feed, showing images of the Xylos swarm. Grotesque chitinous vessels swarming like locusts, their cores glowing with malevolent energy. Each Xylos unit was a living weapon, regenerating almost as fast as it was destroyed, their acid-spitting armaments corrosive enough to eat through even Luminae-forged alloys. The Luminae had never truly known war on such a scale. Their conflicts were often intellectual, strategic, rarely involving such brutal, undeniable force. "For cycles, we have watched the species-designated humans expand," Syra continued, her voice resonating with conviction. "They are different, unpredictable. Their technological progression is erratic, their social structures chaotic, yet their capacity for rapid adaptation and resourcefulness is undeniable. They are young, yes, but their recent engagements, particularly the Solari conflict, showed an unconventional strength." A ripple of unease passed through the council. The Luminae had always considered themselves the zenith of galactic civilization, their wisdom and technology centuries beyond any other known species. Humans were an anomaly, a curious, almost barbaric presence on the galactic periphery. Their very existence defied Luminae logic. "You propose we beg for aid from them?" Vexor hissed, his light dimming in disgust. "What could they possibly offer? A few rudimentary kinetic weapons? Some medical supplies? They are barely spacefaring on a truly galactic scale." Syra projected the latest Xylos incursion patterns. The red lines of their advance were closing in on the last remaining fortified sectors of Luminae Prime. "We do not beg, Councillor. We issue a formal plea for assistance. Their historical data indicates a propensity for collective action in times of crisis. Perhaps they could offer a tactical diversion, a localized energy conduit disruption. Anything to buy us time." The silence that followed was heavy with desperation. The choice was stark. Cling to their fading pride and perish, or grasp at a sliver of hope, however illogical. Finally, Elder Vorn, the oldest and most stoic of the council, raised a shimmering hand. "Syra speaks of time. Time is what we lack. If their propensity for collective action means anything, it means they might respond. Even a fractional contribution is more than we have now. Prepare the high-frequency interstellar beacon. Encode the plea with our most urgent distress protocols. Target their primary communication nexus, Terra Nova Station." A collective sigh, barely audible, swept through the chamber. The decision was made. A desperate, almost ludicrous gambit based on the vague, unsettling data of a species they barely understood. The Luminae, facing the slow, agonizing death of their civilization, had sent a whisper of a plea into the vast, indifferent cosmos, hoping for a tiny spark of human aid. The Luminae distress signal hit the human Commonwealth's orbital defense station, Vigilance Prime, like a jolt. Deep in the heart of the station's sprawling command center, Captain Anya Sharma leaned over her console, her brow furrowed. The signal was garbled, ancient, and undeniably alien. Her team of xenolinguists and cryptographers worked furiously, their fingers flying across holographic interfaces. "We've got a partial translation, Captain," exclaimed Specialist J1, a young woman, with a wild mop of black hair and eyes glued to the shifting text. "It's from the Luminae, the isolationists. They're requesting aid." Anya's lips thinned. The Luminae, a species known more by rumor than direct contact, highly advanced, incredibly reclusive, and notoriously arrogant. For them to send a distress signal, it had to be dire. "Aid?" Anya muttered. "What kind of aid? Resources? Technical advice?" J1 shrugged, cycling through more data. "It's vague, Captain. Something about a bioengineered swarm, existential threat, and failing defenses. Standard distress jargon, but their power signatures are plummeting. This isn't a small-scale conflict." Anya straightened, her gaze sweeping across the tactical displays that shimmered with the Commonwealth's vast network. The human Commonwealth operated under the precept of unconditional assistance, a doctrine forged after the devastating Orion Purge, where an entire sentient species had been wiped out while the galaxy debated intervention. The precept was simple. If a sentient species requested aid in an existential crisis, humanity responded. Not with token gestures, but with everything they had. "Send this directly to Governor General Rostova and Admiral Lee," Anya commanded, her voice crisp with authority. "Flag it Priority 1. Tell them Vigilance Prime confirms a credible existential threat to the Luminae, and start prepping all available humanitarian and defensive assets within 50 parsecs for immediate deployment protocols." Within hours, the Commonwealth leadership convened. Governor General Elena Rostova, a woman whose calm demeanor belied an iron will, sat at the head of the holographic conference table in the Grand Assembly Hall on Terra Nova. Across from her, Admiral Jianli, his face etched with the weariness of 100 campaigns, listened intently as Anya Sharma presented her findings. "They're asking for aid, but their situation is critical," Anya concluded, displaying simulated projections of the Xylos swarm's projected advance. "Their home system, Luminae Prime, appears to be the primary target. We estimate they have weeks, perhaps days before total collapse." "Weeks? Days?" Admiral Lee leaned forward, his eyes sharp. "That doesn't leave us much time for a conventional military deployment." "Precisely, Admiral," Governor General Rostova interjected. "The precept of unconditional assistance is clear. This isn't about sending a few patrol cruisers. This is about total commitment." A collective murmur rippled through the gathered civilian and military leaders. Total commitment. It was a phrase that conjured images of the entire Commonwealth mobilizing, not just its standing forces. "The Luminae are isolationists," offered Counselor Eris Thorne, the Commonwealth's lead diplomat and a shrewd negotiator. "They've always held themselves aloof. Their request for aid is likely predicated on their understanding of aid, a small technological transfer, perhaps a specialized unit. They won't be expecting us." Admiral Lee grinned, a rare wolfish flash of teeth. "Then they're about to get a crash course in human aid. Governor General, I recommend immediate activation of Operation Lumina Rescue. Mobilize all combat-ready fleet assets, requisition civilian transports for humanitarian support, and initiate rapid construction of modular habitat units. We'll need a full-scale refugee effort." Rostova nodded, her gaze firm. "Agreed. This isn't just about saving the Luminae. It's about demonstrating the true spirit of the Commonwealth. Let the galaxy see what happens when humanity answers a cry for help. Initiate General Mobilization Directive Alpha 7. Advise all sector commands. We are not sending aid. We are sending an entire fleet." The decision reverberated through the human Commonwealth. Shipyards, once focused on cargo haulers and mining vessels, began retooling for rapid military production and humanitarian constructs. Civilian freighters were refitted with temporary medical bays and enhanced life support. Thousands of skilled personnel, from engineers to medics to structural specialists, volunteered. Across hundreds of worlds, the whisper of a Luminae distress signal transformed into the roar of human resolve. They were coming, and they were bringing everything. The human Commonwealth fleet assembled with a speed that defied galactic logistics. It wasn't just warships, though hundreds of them, from nimble Rapier-class frigates to the colossal Titan-class dreadnoughts, formed the protective vanguard. Interspersed among them were thousands of vessels the Luminae and other galactic powers wouldn't categorize as military, gleaming spherical habitat modules designed to house millions. Massive modular arcology ships carrying enough resources to establish entire cities. Converted civilian transports brimming with medical supplies, agricultural nutrient paste, and raw construction materials, and the ubiquitous workhorse stellar forge carriers, loaded with automated fabricators and heavy mining equipment. News of the unprecedented mobilization filtered through the galactic data streams. The Interstellar Assembly, a loose coalition of dozens of species, buzzed with bewildered speculation. The humans are sending... What? Squawked a representative of the Avian-Aryan collective, their iridescent feathers ruffled in agitation. A fleet of that magnitude? For the Luminae? They've never even formally acknowledged the assembly. A stony-faced delegate from the utilitarian, Calaxan hegemony projected a tactical overlay. Their trajectory is direct. Their stated purpose is aid. Yet their vessel count exceeds 5 times the hegemony's entire standing fleet. And those non-combatant signatures are those farming vessels. Confusion quickly morphed into alarm. Other species, accustomed to the delicate balance of power and the cautious, often self-interested nature of galactic diplomacy, couldn't fathom such a response. Some whispered of a covert invasion, a clever ruse to conquer Luminae technology or territory. Others feared a galactic-scale power play, a demonstration of force aimed at intimidating everyone else. Humanity, largely unknown and certainly underestimated, had just become the most unsettling wildcard in the galaxy. Back in the Luminae Council chambers, the holographic display showed the incoming human fleet. It was a vast, shimmering cloud of energy signatures growing larger with each passing cycle. Elder Syra, though she had championed the plea, felt a knot of dread tightening in her core. She had expected a handful of vessels, maybe a specialized combat unit. This was an armada. Syra, explain this, demanded Counselor Vexer, his form pulsing a frantic red. This is not aid. This is a full-scale invasion force. Their numerical superiority is absolute. Their signatures are mixed, Counselor. Syra tried to reason, her voice strained. Many are not combat-rated. They appear to be civilian transports, habitat vessels. A deception, Traveler insisted, his luminescence dim. They intend to seize our worlds, usurp our technology under the guise of rescue. This is why we have remained isolated. Syra projected their initial distress message. We require aid against the Xylos swarm. Our defenses are failing. Our people face annihilation. Any assistance is appreciated. She compared it to humanity's recorded response. The human Commonwealth will deploy all necessary resources for the preservation of sentient life. Operation Lumina Rescue is underway. They merely state they are deploying necessary resources, Syra argued, though even to her own ears it sounded weak. Perhaps their definition of necessary is simply broader than ours. In the command bridge of the human dreadnought Unyielding Will, Admiral Jian Li watched the swirling vortex of hyperspace outside his viewscreen. Below him, Captain Anya Sharma meticulously reviewed the flight plan, her composure unshaken by the sheer magnitude of their undertaking. Admiral, Anya reported, Luminae long-range scans have detected us. They're transmitting erratic, unencrypted bursts, high levels of apprehension. They seem to be conducting aggressive power signature analyses. Lee grunted, a flicker of amusement in his eyes. Can't blame them. No one's ever seen a humanitarian fleet of this size, Their definition of aid is probably a scout ship dropping off a few repair drones. He tapped a command on his console. Initiate the standard first contact protocols. Open a hailing frequency. Let's make sure they understand we're here to help, not to conquer. Anya nodded, but a sliver of doubt remained. She knew the precept. She believed in it with every fiber of her being, but she also understood the vast cultural chasm that separated humanity from older, more cynical civilizations. The Luminae thought they would send aid. The galaxy thought humanity was mad. Neither was prepared for the sheer overwhelming reality of what was about to unfold. The fleet surged forward, a silent, glittering testament to human resolve, a harbinger of either salvation or catastrophe, depending on who was watching. The Luminae scout vessel, the Starlight Shard, was barely more than a speck against the colossal silhouette of the human dreadnought Unyielding Will. Commander Velis, his multifaceted eyes wide with a mixture of terror and disbelief, stared at the human view screen. The sheer scale of the approaching armada was nauseating. It wasn't just large, it was impossibly large. A tapestry of shimmering drives and impossible structures that filled half the void. A designated human diplomatic shuttle, the Concordia, detached from the Unyielding Will and drifted towards them. Its sleek lines seemed almost too simple compared to Luminae designs, yet it exuded an undeniable aura of power. "They're hailing us," a young Luminae officer reported, his voice trembling. Velis steeled himself. "Open a direct channel, display our crest, maintain defensive posture, but do not engage unless provoked." On the Concordia, Ambassador Eris Thorn gazed at the Luminae vessel. Beside him, Admiral Lee stood, arms crossed, his presence radiating quiet authority. Captain Sharma, ever vigilant, monitored the readings. "Greetings, Luminae." Thorn's voice, carefully modulated for the Luminae auditory range, echoed through the Starlight Shard. "This is Ambassador Eris Thorn of the Human Commonwealth. We received your distress signal. Operation Lumina Rescue is prepared to offer comprehensive assistance." Commander Velis, his throat tight, managed to respond. "Ambassador Thorn, this is Commander Velis of the Luminae Commonwealth. We are grateful for your response. However, there appears to be a misunderstanding. We requested aid. We did not anticipate this." His gaze swept over the human fleet filling the sky. "Your armada is overwhelming. Our intelligence indicates your total naval strength is nowhere near this scale." Thorn's expression remained calm, though a flicker of understanding crossed Admiral Lee's face. "Commander, your intelligence is likely based on our peacetime fleet deployments. When the human Commonwealth commits to an existential threat, we do so with all available resources. Our definition of aid encompasses everything necessary to ensure the survival and recovery of a sentient species." Velis's optical sensors widened. "Everything necessary? We sought perhaps a limited contingent of defensive vessels. Some advanced weapon schematics. We are not prepared for such an influx. Our infrastructure cannot support it. Our populace is alarmed." Thorn activated a holographic display between their ships, a complex projection of the Luminae system, overlaid with proposed human operations. "Commander, Luminae Prime is facing planetary collapse. Your energy grid is failing. Your shield, harmonics are degrading. Our long-range scans indicate critical atmospheric breaches are imminent. Our plan involves immediate large-scale deployment of atmospheric regeneration units, the establishment of orbital displacement habitats for your civilian population, rapid deployment of Xylos countermeasures, and the initiation of terraforming protocols for suitable nearby celestial bodies, should Luminae Prime become uninhabitable." The words hit Commander Velis like a physical blow. Terraforming, orbital habitats. This wasn't aid. This was a complete takeover of their societal infrastructure, a rewriting of their future. Back in the Luminae Council chambers, Elder Sira and her colleagues watched the live feed in stunned horror. "Terraforming?" Counselor Vexer shrieked, his light flickering frantically. "They intend to colonize us, to dismantle our worlds and rebuild them to their specifications." "No, wait," Elder Syra whispered, though her own dread was palpable. He said, should Luminae Prime become uninhabitable, it's a contingency. Contingency for a species they barely know? Trevlar exploded. This is arrogance. This is an invasion by proxy. They are bringing their entire civilization to overwhelm. Ours. Ambassador Thorne's voice, calm and reassuring, continued through the comms. Our fleet includes not just combat vessels, Commander Velis, but an unparalleled array of civilian support. Medical ships, food synthesizers, atmospheric processors, engineering teams, and even cultural liaisons. We are prepared to evacuate your entire population if necessary, and to rebuild your civilization from the ground up, in partnership with your people, to ensure your long-term survival. Velis could only stare, speechless. The human Commonwealth was not offering a bandage. They were offering a full biological and societal transplant. They had requested a cup of water, and humanity had arrived with an ocean. It was a gesture of overwhelming, almost terrifying altruism, utterly alien to the pragmatic, self-serving diplomacy common in the wider galaxy. It was too much. Far, far too much. Ambassador, Velis finally managed, his voice hollow. This is beyond our comprehension. We must consult our High Council. Until then, we respectfully request you maintain your fleet at a safe distance. Thorne merely nodded, a knowing look in his eyes. Understood, Commander. We will hold position. But be advised, our combat vessels are already deploying preliminary defensive screens. The Xylos swarm is persistent. We are here to help, Commander, whether you are ready for it or not. The Xylos swarm did not wait for Luminae deliberations. As the human fleet held its position at the edge of the system, a massive wave of bioengineered vessels, sleek and terrifying, surged from the gas giant Viridian's embrace, their primary target, Luminae Prime. Luminae defense platforms already weakened, shattered like brittle glass under the renewed assault. They've breached the outer perimeter, a Luminae sensor operator screamed in the council chambers, as the Xylos appeared as malevolent red blips on their tactical displays, swarming towards the precious, dimming light of Luminae Prime. Admiral, Lee's voice, resolute and calm, cut through the Luminae channels. Luminae Command, this is Admiral Lee of the Human Commonwealth. Your defenses are compromised. We are initiating combat protocols. Do not attempt to engage unless specifically instructed. Clear all sectors around Luminae Prime for our engagement. Without waiting for a response, the human fleet moved. It was a choreographed ballet of destruction that utterly confounded the Luminae. The colossal Titan-class dreadnoughts, led by the unyielding Will, didn't form rigid defensive lines as the Luminae might. Instead, they plunged directly into the heart of the Xylos formation, their heavy particle cannons tearing gaping holes in the swarms. But it wasn't just raw firepower. Mining frigates, typically slow and unwieldy, jettisoned their heavy excavator arms and deployed dense, self-replicating gravitic decoys that disrupted the Xylos' bio-navigation systems. Stellar forge carriers designed for deep space construction, disgorged clouds of automated repair drones that, to the Luminae's astonishment, swarmed not only human vessels, but also stray Luminae defense platforms, shoring up their failing energy conduits mid-battle. They're using a converted cargo hauler as a ramming decoy, Commander Velis exclaimed from his scout ship, watching the battle unfold from a safe distance. And those are agricultural nutrient processors deploying a bioluminescent fog to obscure their sensor readings. Elder Syra, watching from the council chambers, felt a thrill of horrified awe. This wasn't war as the Luminae understood it. It was improvisation, adaptability, and an almost reckless disregard for traditional tactical doctrine. Human ships, with their diverse loadouts, seemed to specialize in nothing and everything at once. Admiral Lee, from the bridge of the unyielding Will, barked orders. Focus fire on the Xylos breeders. Isolate the primary Nexus ships. Captain Sharma, initiate Iron Curtain maneuver. Sacrifice the Peregrine and Stardust to create the choke point. Captain Sharma's expression tightened. The Peregrine and Stardust were older, smaller frigates, but they were still human lives. Confirmed, Admiral, she replied, her voice unwavering. Orders transmitting. The two frigates, their shields barely holding, swung around and braced themselves, their engines flaring brightly. Xylos fighters swarmed them, sensing weakness. Then, with a final defiant surge of power, their self-destruct sequences initiated. The resulting explosions, though contained, created a temporary violent void in the Xylos formation, funneling the remaining swarm directly into the waiting maw of the unyielding Will's devastating broadsides. Admiral Lee sacrificed two of his own vessels to save our orbital energy conduits, Elder Syra murmured, the words alien on her tongue. Luminae's strategy prioritized the preservation of critical infrastructure and technological assets above all else, even over individual lives. The human act was incomprehensible, yet undeniably effective. The tide began to turn. The Xylos, for the first time, were not just attacking. They were being systematically dismantled. Their numbers, once overwhelming, were dwindling rapidly. Human fighter craft, nimble and aggressive, darted between the larger Xylos units, striking at weak points identified by their advanced tactical AI. Commander Velis, his fear slowly replaced by a strange sense of wonder, saw a human medical transport, the Genesis Hope, veered dangerously close to a Xylos-damaged Luminae research station. From its bays, small human shuttles launched, not armed, but carrying rescue crews. Humans, in the midst of a brutal battle, were risking their lives to save Luminae citizens even before the primary threat was neutralized. The Xylos swarm, though relentless, was not invincible. Facing an enemy that refused to fight by any established rules, an enemy that sacrificed its own, and an enemy that deployed an unthinkable array of civilian and military assets in a single, coordinated assault, began to break. The remaining Xylos vessels, their bioengineered intelligence signaling imminent destruction, peeled away, scattering back into the void, leaving behind a debris field of their shattered brethren. The battle for Luminae Prime was over for now. The humans had won, and the Luminae, witnessing the sheer shocking scale of human ingenuity and self-sacrifice, realized their definition of aid had been laughably, dangerously narrow. With the immediate Xylos threat repelled from Luminae Prime, the human fleet, rather than regrouping for celebratory maneuvers, seamlessly transitioned into relief operations. The distinction between combat and humanitarian vessels blurred completely. The hulking arcology ships extended vast shimmering docking ports, and streams of Luminae civilians, once huddled in underground shelters, were carefully ushered aboard. Their fear was palpable, but the quiet efficiency and gentle demeanor of the human medical teams and logistics personnel began to slowly chip away at their xenophobia. On the surface of Luminae Prime, stellar forge carriers landed, their massive bays opening to unleash automated construction drones. Damaged energy conduits vital to Luminae life support were rapidly repaired and even upgraded with robust human-designed redundant systems. Modular habitats, sleek and functional, were quickly assembled on safe ground, offering immediate, comfortable shelter for the displaced. Food synthesizers, surprisingly palatable for Luminae physiology, hummed with activity. Ambassador Eris Thorne established a temporary diplomatic mission within one of the newly constructed habitat modules, a neutral space where Luminae officials, initially wary, slowly began to gather. Elder Syra, though still processing the sheer audacity of the human response, was among the first to arrive. Ambassador Thorne, Syra began, her voice still tinged with disbelief. Your methods, they are unlike anything we have ever encountered. We prepared for a conflict. You brought a civilization. Thorne offered a small, knowing smile. Elder Syra, to humanity, there is no greater conflict than the potential extinction of a sentient species, and there is no greater victory than its preservation. Our understanding of aid is holistic. It's not just about winning a battle, it's about winning a future. He projected a series of charts detailing human societal values. Collective, well-being, sustainability, compassion, ingenuity, and resilience. We believe in the inherent value of every life and every culture, Thorne explained patiently. Your distress signal was a cry for help. We interpreted it as an invitation to save your people, not just from the Xylos, but from the consequences of the conflict. Our fleet contains everything needed to re-establish a thriving civilization, should the worst come to pass. We offer this, not as conquerors, but as partners. Your technology, your wisdom, your unique cultural identity, they are valuable to the galaxy. We wish to preserve them, not absorb them. Elder Syra found herself speechless. It was a philosophy so utterly alien to the Luminae's isolationist, self-reliant ethos, yet so undeniably powerful. Meanwhile, Commander, Xylos, still grappling with the revelations of the battle, found himself in a human-operated field hospital. He observed human medics, their faces etched with fatigue tending to Luminae injured. There was no distinction, no hesitation. A human doctor, her hands stained with alien fluids, gently reset a fractured appendage of a Luminae citizen. Her focus absolute. We would not have done this, Xylos confessed to a human medic named Corporal Jax, who was offering a Luminae child a nutrient paste tube. For our own, yes. But for an unknown species, we would have maintained our distance. Jax, a weary but kind smile on his face, looked up. Commander, when someone is bleeding, you stop the bleeding. Doesn't matter what color their blood is, doesn't matter if they're from the next star system or across the galaxy. They're hurting. We help. He shrugged. It's just what we do. Xylos. Watch the exchange, a profound shift occurring within him. This simple, unadorned statement resonated with a truth he hadn't known existed. The humans weren't driven by conquest, or even calculated self-interest, but by something more fundamental. Something compassionate. As days turned into weeks, the fragile bridge of understanding slowly solidified. Luminae citizens, witnessing the tireless and compassionate human efforts, began to shed their ingrained fear and xenophobia. They saw human children playing near Luminae structures, human engineers tirelessly working alongside their Luminae counterparts, and human medics offering comfort to their elders. The initial shock gave way to cautious acceptance, then to genuine gratitude. The human Commonwealth hadn't just sent aid, they had sent a blueprint for a shared future, one built on a foundation of empathy and overwhelming, undeniable support. The Luminae, once isolated and fading, felt a glimmer of hope ignite, a light that shone not from their own weakening spires, but from the unexpected, dazzling generosity of humanity. Months passed. The Xylos swarm, though not entirely eradicated, was a fraction of its former terrifying might. Human and Luminae tactical teams, operating with unprecedented synergy, had tracked and systematically dismantled their breeding grounds and command nodes across the sector. The bioengineered plague, once an existential threat, was now largely contained, a testament to combined ingenuity. Luminae Prime, once on the brink of ecological collapse, was slowly but surely healing. Human-built modular cities, bright and efficient, now flourished alongside rehabilitated Luminae structures. Their advanced atmospheric processors had restored breathable air to vast regions, and the Luminae energy grid, bolstered by human fusion reactors, glowed with renewed vitality. The once dim crystalline spires of the capital now shimmered with an almost defiant brilliance. In a grand ceremony held in the newly constructed shared diplomatic complex on Luminae Prime, a formal treaty was signed between the Luminae Commonwealth and the human Commonwealth. Elder Syra, no longer a proponent of cautious isolation but a fierce advocate for the new alliance, stood before her people. Her luminescent form pulsed with a steady, vibrant blue, a stark contrast to the faded hues of months prior. "My people," she began, her voice strong and clear, amplified across the system. "For cycles we looked inward. We believed our strength lay in our self-reliance, our wisdom in our solitude. We misjudged. When the Xylos swarm threatened to extinguish our very light, we sent a desperate plea, expecting a token gesture. We expected aid." A ripple of knowing, murmurs passed through the assembled Luminae and human dignitaries. "What humanity sent," Syra continued, her multifaceted eyes sweeping across the diverse faces before her, "was not aid, it was a promise. A promise of unconditional support, of shared burden, of a future we could not have conceived alone. They did not send a rescue mission, they sent an entire civilization. They gave us their technology, their resilience, their unwavering compassion. They showed us that true strength lies not in isolation but in connection. They showed us the true meaning of aid, not a handout, but a hand reaching out, ready to build a new world alongside you. A cheer, surprisingly, loud and heartfelt, erupted from the Luminae crowd, echoed by the boisterous applause of the human delegation. Commander Xylos, now a key liaison in the Joint Defense Forces, stood proudly beside Corporal Jax, exchanging a warm, understanding nod. Later, as the celebrations continued, Ambassador Thorne and Admiral Lee stood on a newly established orbital platform looking down at the revitalized Luminae Prime. A truly integrated future, Thorne mused, his gaze thoughtful. It's a rare thing, Admiral. Most alliances are born of necessity, of mutual self-interest. This was born of pure humanity. Admiral Lee grunted, a rare, genuine smile gracing his lips. When I said we were sending an entire fleet, even I didn't fully grasp the scale of it. We didn't just save them from the Xylos, Eris. We saved them from themselves, from their isolation. Thorne nodded. And they, in turn, have taught us something too, that even the most advanced, most ancient civilizations can be brought to their knees, and that our unique brand of chaotic, compassionate ingenuity can be the very thing to lift them back up. The galaxy is a very different place now, and the Luminae, they are no longer fading. They are a shining example of what happens when humanity answers a cry for help. The Luminae, no longer isolated, looked out at a galaxy that was now both familiar and startlingly new, redefined by human generosity. Their future, once bleak and solitary, stretched before them, boundless and full of shared possibilities. The light of Luminae Prime burned brighter than ever, not just a beacon for their own survival, but a testament to humanity's unwavering spirit in the vast, complex tapestry of the cosmos.